Hi, everybody. Welcome to the No More Heroin Survivor Series. I'm your host, Higgy. I'm going to let the audience build. I'm going to play a song by Jordan Meyer called Rain. Hope you all enjoy this. Please take the time to share this out. Everybody loves Jordan Meyer.
Jordan Meyer. Take a look outside your window. I'll tell you what you'll see. All you see is rain, 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 rain. Take a look outside your window. I'll tell you what you'll see. All you'll see is rain, 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 rain. I woke up, I went out, and everything's looking so damn lonely. I want sun and blue skies. I deleted my cell phone app that gives me this bad news. Take a peek outside and just hit snooze. Something about the weather makes my mood. And if it's raining outside, I'll be in again. Take a look outside your window. I'll tell you what you'll see. All you see is rain, 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 rain. Take a look outside your window. I'll tell you what you'll see. All you'll see is rain, 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 rain. I can't stand the gray clouds. Got me feeling so low and I can't escape. I'm so stuck in my head. All day I'm in the clothes that I wore to bed. I hate this rain. Can't wait for the sun again. I hate this rain. Can't wait for the sun again. Rain keeps on falling. It's never gonna stop. I curse the sky now with every little drop. And if it's raining outside, I'll be in again. Take a look outside your window. I'll tell you what you'll see. All you see is rain, 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 rain. Take a look outside your window. I'll tell you what you'll see. All you'll see is rain, 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 rain. Inevitable storms are gonna fall. Cross my fingers, hope that soon the Ryan sky will stall. Picture someplace warm, silence in the sky. Everything is dry. For summertime, I can't wait. I hope to make it by. Take a look outside your window. I'll tell you what you'll see. All you see is rain, 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 rain. Take a look outside your window. I'll tell you what you'll see. All you'll see is rain, 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 rain.
Woo, yeah. Love Jordan Meyer. How's everybody doing tonight, man? It's been a while since I've done a No More Heroin Survivor Series. I've taken a second job. I'm working in treatment. I'm working with clients, so my time is limited. But I've had to reschedule this live with the Sober Guru several times, and I really, really want you guys to meet him. I want you to be able to experience what he's about and hear his testimony, because that's what No More Heroin Survivor Series is about. It's about promoting people's stories in recovery, those people that have overcome seemingly insurmountable odds to have and live a life of purpose and destiny. And tonight is no exception. I'd like for you guys to welcome, from the Sober Guru, Tim Fasarakis. What's up, bro?
How are you doing? What's up, Hig?
Hey, man. Were you able to see the video and hear it okay?
Yeah, that was good, man. That was good. I never heard of him before, actually.
Jordan Myers from Connecticut. He's an amazing producer, musician. He's in recovery as well, and he's got an amazing testimony. He's been a guest on here as well. But a little background for everyone. My very first job in treatment as a behavioral health tech, Tim was one of my clients a couple years ago, and we didn't really realize it until after we started talking. We thought we knew each other, but then we started putting two and two together, and swapping the stories back and forth. And through our conversations and talking about recovery, I just love what he's about. I love what the mission and the content for the Sober Guru, and you have such an amazing testimony, and people need to hear these testimonies. So I want to welcome you to the No More Heroin Survivor Series.
I appreciate being here, man.
Yep. So you are a new father.
Yes, a new father to 2 stepdaughters and to 2 twins.
2 newborn twins. Tell us what that's about.
Oh man, it's a full-time job. In itself, it is a full-time job. I had to sneak away just to do this.
So
did you ever
envision your life to be what it is today?
What's that?
Did you ever envision your life to be like this?
Absolutely not. I did not. I couldn't imagine this. I mean, in my best days as a youth, I couldn't imagine this. Especially in active addiction. I would have called you crazy. I would have asked you what you were using, and if you told me my life would be like
you need to share. You need to share with me.
Yeah, seriously. Yeah, it's beyond my wildest dreams. Seriously, it's a lot more than I could have hoped for. I'm blessed, all around.
Yeah,
all around.
If you would have envisioned anything less than this, you would have sold yourself short, right?
Oh yeah, for sure, definitely.
So please tell us about the Sober Guru platform. What is
Sober Guru? I made it last April, and my intentions for the page was, you see between the media, online, social media, you see so much negativity. And me, myself, when I was using, I turned to social media to waste time, to see what was going on, all that stuff. But I wanted to put something out there that was more positive, more inspiring, more, more hope. I realized there's a lot of negativity. So the only way I can make a change in that is combating it with positivity. So, they say, be the change you want to see. So I was like, okay, I'll do this and see what comes of it. I didn't expect it to grow as fast as it did. But I was definitely just trying to inspire, spread hope, maybe have someone see someone else's battle or someone else's success story, and then advert from that road. So mostly it was inspiration and hope, and then I mixed some success stories in there, and just to see. Sorry, I got a busy house over here. This is just to give hope to other people. I know for me personally, when I was in active addiction, I thought all hope was lost. Like we just talked about. You had told me this when I was using, I would have called you crazy. So maybe if it's in front of people's faces and they see it, it's a little bit easier to accept that it's possible. You know what I mean?
Right. Because
the road doesn't end with addiction.
We both came from the very bottom of human existence and have this amazing life today. And it's readily available for anyone that's willing to put in the work.
Definitely. And that's like a big key. As long as people are willing to take that step and to do the work, I feel like no one should be able to give up. No one should have to give up hope. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. This. How are things in your area? You're in Texas, correct?
Yeah, I'm right outside Austin.
So
it's actually pretty bad here.
How did you and the family deal with quarantine and coronavirus?
A lot of Skippo, a lot of Uno, a lot of movie nights, a lot of let's not try and kill each other.
Right.
So I have an 11-year-old stepdaughter, a 16-year-old stepdaughter, and then the twins, and then my fiance. So, you got all the age ranges. So it's kind of crazy with the 11-year-old and the 16-year-old and them arguing all day, and then the baby's crying, and then like, let's just find the medium here and just get along and, get through this. Because I mean, you know how it is for kids, no kid wants to be locked up in the house all day. Can't even go to the park, can't go swimming,
Sure.
So we try to make the best of it,
Yeah, you had to be creative, huh?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I learned a lot of board games these last couple months.
What did you do for your recovery to keep
For my recovery?
Yeah.
Oh, where do I start? Are you talking about for quarantine?
Yeah.
A lot of Zoom meetings, a lot of reaching out to people, reaching out to people like yourself. Definitely a lot of fellowship, virtual fellowship, but still all in the same. I actually prayed a lot. I've probably grown closer to God in this time. Than before. You get wrapped up in life. You get tossed back and forth with different things going on. And me personally, I lost that connection. Right. So I'm actually glad in a way that this happened, because it gave me time, and it gave me that drive to get back to my strong connection with God. So that for me was a big thing. Definitely a lot of prayer. But yeah, the Zoom meetings help a lot. I try to read, but I'm not that into it. I'm gonna be honest.
Sure. Well, it'd be hard to concentrate with all that stuff going around.
Oh yeah, no, it's impossible. At night and like the first 2 hours of your day, you got the most quiet time, and that's about it.
Well, creating content for your page helps keep you engaged.
It most definitely does, and definitely communicating with people on my page helps a lot. And like that's part of my fellowship. You know what I mean? I reach out, believe it or not, helping people for me gets me out of myself. So I don't have time to, have those fleeting thoughts. I don't have time for any kind of obsessions. I'd say a lot of my day is on my phone. Yeah, I'd say probably about 75% of my day. So talking to others is a big part of my recovery.
Absolutely. Sure. That maintaining that connection no matter what, even when you don't want to talk to somebody, sometimes forcing yourself to do that.
That's when I push myself though,
Absolutely.
Yeah, for me personally, I've noticed when I don't want to do something, there's a reason for it, and it's probably insecurity or doubts or anxiety or whatever the case may be. It's something that I've been trying to work towards. Just trying new things. Even this, for instance, I've never done lives before, but I was like, what, I don't want to do it, so maybe I should do it. I kind of just do the contrary action. More so talking to people even.
I really applaud you for give you props for jumping on here. You've never done a live before, and I wanted to make this comfortable for you. I wanted this to be something that you look back on, because what you have to offer and to share with other people is very valuable. So thank you for doing that again. Sarah Jane McFall in New Zealand wants to know your twins. Are they boys or girls, and what are their names?
2 boys, Lucas and Lucian.
Wow, cool name.
They were 3 minutes apart.
3 minutes apart.
They're a blessing, man. I like I said, I wouldn't have imagined this in a million years. It's good. It's like a spiritual awakening when you're in that delivery room.
It's definitely a spiritual experience. I've been there myself, and thank God.
Blessing, though.
Thank God a good woman in your life as well.
Oh yeah, definitely. She puts up with a lot of my shit. Being on my phone, talking nonstop. She's like, "You're almost done." So I had to master multitasking. That's something I didn't have to master before, but now like, with this family, I have to be like hands on. My headphones in, talking and like paying attention to what I'm doing with the babies, and it's a mess. Beautiful mess.
It's a beautiful mess. It's amazing. So please take us for a trip down memory lane, and what was it like for you growing up, and when did you start experimenting with drugs or alcohol?
Okay, so I was born and raised most of my life in Philadelphia. Pretty middle class, not terrible area, not great area. I was raised in church, and I'd say everything was normal up until I reached 12, And I was like, I can start doing things myself. I can start, making my own decisions. I'm a big kid, you know how it goes, man. But that rebelliousness, those rebellious characteristics started kicking in. And I wanted to do everything that I was told not to do. I was like, you know what? You're telling me not to do it. I'm saying it's not going to work out that way that you're telling me. So I'm just going to try it myself. Just basically a problem with authority, from a young age, even at 12. Probably started before that, but that's when I started acting it out. But I was real slick with it. I'm one of 5 children, right? 2 older, 2 younger. So I kind of flew under the radar. I watched what my brother did. I just didn't do it exactly like that. I do it a little bit more sneakier, just sliding right through. So I didn't really have too much attention on me as far as like, what am I doing outside the house, on my phone, blah, blah, blah. So I'd say about 13, 14, I started drinking. Started smoking cigarettes, started sipping beers, just because I was told I can't do it. So I'm going to do it anyway. I probably smoked weed for the first time at like 14, 15, somewhere around there. And then at 16, I'm flying under the radar, started working, stuff like that. At 16, I kind of got more bold, right? I was like, oh, I found out I can get emancipated at 16. I don't got to have no authority. All right. So got emancipated and then just wanted to live my life, basically. I didn't want to hide in the dark with what I was doing, I didn't like the Christian school I was in. I didn't like going to church. So I was just like, forget all that. Couldn't have like, relationships I wanted to have with the people I wanted to have them with. So I was like, forget all the rules. I'm going to do my own thing, or, moving with a friend, right? A lot less structured than what I'm used to. So I did that. And then I have to say it kind of got a lot worse. Then came, experimenting with pills, Xanax, Percocet, oxys, basically anything I can get my hands on. Done some acid, shrooms, Molly, ecstasy, pretty much.
You became open to anything at that point.
Yes.
For myself, yes. I can relate to that rebellion, and that rebellion led me to just horrible life choices and putting myself into dangerous and risky situations.
Oh yeah. Yeah, definitely. My crowds changed. The friends that I was around changed. The situations I was in changed, and I was so adverse to authority. I don't know what it was with me, but there was definitely, like I said, probably around like 12, I noticed it. Excuse me. There was like this void, right? This void they talked about in the rooms. That was actually probably the one thing that got me, paying the most attention in when I got sober, is that void, because I related to that the most. And honestly, I filled it with anything that I could, right? So drugs, relationships, situations that like pump my adrenaline, like, oh, I shouldn't be doing this. Oh, this is legal. All right, I'm gonna do it. You know what I mean? Those kind of things I'd filled in. But unfortunately, that's all temporary, right? There's no fix in that. So it wouldn't last. So then I'd be chasing something else, chasing another experience, chasing, you know what I mean? Just on and on chaos, just straight unmanageability. So I'd say, I graduated high school at 17, still living in Philly, and I started EMT school. I got kicked out of there. I was selling answer keys to people, and they didn't really like that.
You were a hustler from the get-go, weren't you?
What's that?
You were a hustler from the get.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Especially when I moved out. I was like, I would sell anything. I would do anything. If I can go to the doctors and get a script, I'd sell it,
Manipulation.
So and sell the rest. And that was just part of my environment growing up. Philadelphia is kind of like that. I mean, it's especially certain parts. Beautiful city, but there's a lot of dark places there, which, brings me, to where my addiction got worse. So, that hustler mentality I've always had. So 17, I graduated. And then after I got kicked out of school for EMT, I started doing like side hustles, right? What was it? It was construction. It was moving companies. It was just anything I could do to make some money, right? And then about 18 years old, I got into a pretty rough car accident. Not too bad, nothing like debilitating, but it messed up my back pretty bad. And I got introduced to the doctor game. I was like, oh shit. I'm sorry for cursing, but I was like, oh crap, like I can get pills from the doctors. So started doing that. Started going to like 2 or 3 doctors. It didn't start off as rapid at first. I'd say a couple months in, and then it got that bad to where I was going to multiple doctors, paying cash. Again, the hustler wanted to sell them, was taking too many, would run out in like 2 weeks. So that started at around 18. It was the pills. I was still drinking then. I think my drinking got worse. I'd say 16, 17, right around when I graduated. Then I'm drinking like every other day, every weekend, and just trying to escape. My reality.
What I'm hearing is the progression of the disease.
Oh yeah, yeah. So it gets a lot worse too. So the pills went on for about, I'd say, a good 2 years, because I'd say a year after my first accident, I got T-boned while I was going like 30 miles an hour. Some old couple blew a stop sign and just threw my car onto the curb. And then I'm like, okay, great, another doctor visit, right? So here I am going like 3 different doctors. Oxycodone was huge. Hydrocodone was huge. So, I'm picking and choosing. All right, I'll take these. I'll sell these. I'll do this. I'll go refill these. Stuff like that, just trying to keep my addiction going, right? Mm-hmm. And then I'll fast forward a little bit. So my unmanageability remained pretty bad right there. It progressed, I'd say, around, I want to say 2021. So eventually the doctors cut me off, right? The accident happened a year ago. We're going to just stop you with this, right? They didn't do it properly. They didn't give me forewarning. So they didn't give me any forewarning about the pills to begin with. Like, you're going to get hooked on these. You're going to have a hard time coming off of these. Be careful. Didn't get any of that, right? No disclaimers. Mm-hmm. So I'd say about a year and a half in, they tried to stop me. They tried to cut me off. So I was at the time, I was cool with it because I had other doctors, right? Well, when those other doctors wanted to cut me off, luckily, he told me about Suboxone, and he was like, look, you're young. I don't want you to go down this road. I'm looking out for you. I'll put you on Suboxone. No more pills. Just get off this stuff, right? So I look at it as, okay, now I got to sell these Suboxone to go get some pills. Can't get no more free pills, right? No more pills. So I started doing that. Well, I don't know if you know, but like pills on the streets are pretty expensive. They're not cheap. And like, 1 pill didn't do it. 2 pills didn't do it. I needed like 15, 20, every time I went to get more. So it was just really, really expensive. So I did that for a couple months, and then I just, it wasn't worth my time anymore. I stopped. Well, my fiance at the time, her brother was like a heroin addict. And I remember I drove him, it was like Halloween of that year. I drove him to go cop some heroin. And I was out of pills completely. My back's hurting. I'm like, I need something. Can you find me pills? I'll take you if you can find me pills. Yeah, I got you. Well, he couldn't do that. So he's like, here, just try a little bit of this heroin. He's like, it's the same thing. It's the same, compound. It's just a little bit stronger. I was like, all right, cool. I always looked at heroin as like, that's like the worst, right? Like, pills, they're all right. Everybody takes pills, weed, that's fine. Everybody smokes, drinking is fine. So I always justified my actions previous to that. And I always held heroin as like, this is the worst. I can never get to this. Well, I was like, all right, I'll just snort a little bit of it, right? So I snorted a little bit of it. I was like, oh my God, dude, that was like nothing, and I'm not trying to glorify it by any means, but like it took me to another level. And then I'm justifying it because I'm not injecting it. So I'm not that bad, right? Mm-hmm. It's not terrible yet. So I'd say about maybe like 6 months to a year. That continued. Needless to say, that fiance left me. She actually left me when I went to Florida, when I came to you. Mm-hmm. So I was there. I came to you. Let me think. Hold on. So before you, I'll rewind a little bit. I'd never been to rehab before, right? I thought rehab was like for celebrities or people with money. I didn't think rehab was an option for majority of people. Sure. So and I found that to be a common misconception as well, which has a lot to do with, spreading hope and awareness and stuff like that. So my first rehab was, I'd say I was 2021, like right after when I first started using heroin. And I went to a state-run facility in PA. I didn't understand the whole dynamics of it. I didn't understand the program. I didn't understand any of it. I was like, oh, they're going to detox me so I'm not sick? Awesome, let's do it.
Right.
And I thought I was better after that. Magically, I'm cured, right? Like you go get medicine, you're better, you're not sick anymore.
Mhm.
Well, that's not the case. So I'm there for 7 days, detoxed. I'm like, come pick me up. I'm done. They said I can leave. So she comes, picks me up, and I'd say a week later, there I am again, sniffing heroin.
Mhm.
So I think she turned a blind eye for about another month, maybe tops, because she had like a little 3-year-old daughter. So I understood, you don't want that around your kid. Nobody.
No.
So about, I'd say another month or two. And then, she's like, this is it. Like, you got to do something or I'm going to leave. I was like, all right, cool. I'll go again. No, this time you got to stay. I was like, all right, I'll try it out. So I came to, down where you were working in Florida, and I stayed, I'd say about two months, and then I I had to get a surgery, and it wasn't covered in Florida, so I had to go home. Clinical didn't agree with me, whatever. Maybe it was my addiction. I don't really know. At the time, I was still sick, really sick. So I ended up going home. When I went home to Philly, my whole car was packed up with my stuff, and the house was empty. I'm like, what's going on? Like, I went and got help. We just can't be in this toxic environment with, the 3-year-old. I was like, all right, time to get high. I turned to the only thing that was a consistent for me at that time in my life. The drugs are always there. They never leave me. They don't abandon me, blah, 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 blah. Right? So there I am getting high again. Moved in with my dad. And I went back on Suboxone because I was like, I can't keep doing this. It's too expensive. It's I hear it's really dangerous, the heroin. And that's another misconception I had too. I thought, oh, I'm taking pills, I can't overdose. No one overdoses on pills. That's just like shooting up heroin, you overdose. I was like making up every excuse in the book to why my behaviors weren't that bad, right? Always justifying it.
Minimizing.
What's that? Minimizing, yeah.
Out of all the evidence and the research, minimize it so you can still find a way to make it sound good to you.
Right. And at this point, so I had a job at Children's Hospital in Philadelphia in the support department. And after 3 years, I lost that job because they sent me to an outpatient, not an inpatient, but an outpatient, because I had a dirty urine. When I came back a week before Christmas, couldn't piss clean. So lost that job. That was around the same time she left me, or right before I went to Florida. So like I said, so I couldn't see the proof and the evidence right in front of my face that everything was deteriorating in front of me. I couldn't see that. I'm just making up all these excuses, right? So I moved with my dad. I got back on sub maintenance. I was like, this is a little bit more manageable for me. I can still figure this out. I can beat this, right? And at this point, I've never tried to work a program yet. I've never tried, working with a sponsor. I thought that I was just going to wake up one day and I'll be fine, right? I'll just beat it. I'll get past it. I'll medicate it away, act like it doesn't exist. I didn't even know at that point, because I didn't really take the treatment serious. I didn't really even know that the problem was from within, right? I didn't understand that the using was a symptom of the issues inside. I didn't want to accept any of that. I wasn't hearing it. My problem with authority plays a part in this, because even though I went to rehab for 2 months, I didn't want to hear anything they had to say. They don't know. They're just feeding me a bunch of bullshit. So that all plays a big part in it, though, right? Mm-hmm. So I got another relationship, and again, toxic, except this time she was an addict as well. And she knew I was selling my Suboxone to get heroin. So she's like, why don't you just get on methadone, like me, you don't have to use heroin. I was like, oh, okay, cool. Yeah, I do that, right? I do that for about 2 months. They start I think it was like 50 milligrams, 80 milligrams. They tried bumping me all the way up to like 140 in a matter of like 2 months. And I'm like, yo, this is crazy. So I go for treatment again 3 months, because I was still dabbling with heroin. So I was mixing the two, right? Methadone and heroin. So I go into treatment. Well, so she got locked up. She was like on the run, probation violation or something. She got locked up, and I was like, here I am again, alone. Just the chaos, right? The constant chaos. I couldn't sit with it. So I went for the third time to treatment. I went somewhere local again at that time, like Central PA, and stayed for about 3 weeks. Except this time I took it a little bit more serious, right? Because I'm like, there's something to this I'm not getting. So I let down my guards a little bit, right? I start hearing what people have to say. I start taking a little bit of suggestion, but like I pick and choose which suggestions I'm taking. So I still have that control, So I again, like a lot of seeds were planted then for me, right? Because now I'm taking in things more than I did in the past. So a lot of seeds were planted. One thing that stuck out to me before, specifically that time, was so I'm detoxing. That my detox was about 10 days because the methadone takes a while to come out of your system, and plus I was using heroin, right? So I'm kicking, I'd say, for a good like 10, 11 days, like bad. And I've never done methadone before this. So I didn't know what was going on. I'm like, yo, why is my body so haywire? The nurse tech comes up to me. I couldn't sleep. They took me out of the room with my roommate because I was like making too much of a ruckus, too much commotion. He couldn't sleep. So they took me out of the room. I went to the nurse's office, slept on the couch. And I mean, not much sleep, but just like, the restlessness, and just like couldn't really get maybe about an hour sleep. But I remember him saying to me specifically, he's like, when are you going to be tired? When are you going to be tired enough to do something about it? And I'm like, dude, what are you talking about? Like, just like help me with some meds or something, like make this go away, Yeah, just cure it for me. What's that?
Don't make me think about this. I need.
Right. I don't want to address it. I just want it to go away. So that stuck with me, right? And then I get out of there. She gets out of jail. I thought it was a great idea to get married. I have no idea why, but active addiction, right?
Right.
She introduced me to shooting up the heroin, right? Because now we're both using heroin together. Of course I relapsed. I think I had. Oh, so that's the funny part. So I went sober living after I left there, right? And I got married and left sober living and then relapsed. I think I was in sober living for about a month, a halfway house for about a month, and everybody's telling me, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. You know me. Tell me no, I'm gonna say yes.
You know what's best.
Of course, I have all the answers, right?
At any point up to this, had you ever had a sponsor and worked a program?
That time in treatment, I did. That time when I went to the halfway house, I did. I was doing IOP. I was going to meetings. I did like, I think 20 and 20. I didn't really make the full 90 days, but no, I was doing good then. It's just when she got out of jail, she was using, I'd say, like 3 days out of jail, right? And I noticed it. I'm like, yo, like that looks good, right? I'm sitting there like, I mean, I shouldn't have put myself in that situation to begin with. I should have cut that off way before I welcomed her with open arms back into my life. And then went to the Justice of Peace, got married against all advice, right? So she's, again, I'm just sniffing at the time, but she's getting higher. I'm jealous. I'm like, yo, like, like this ain't fair, right? I wanted to, nothing was, I basically, I started shooting up then, and I overdosed the first week, and then I got Narcan, and then the second time I overdosed was about 2 months later. I overdosed in front of my dad's house, and then he's like, look, you got to go. You can't live here. You can't stay here. You can't be around here. So there I was again. I went and got clean one more time, right? So I was like, I can't be in this area. I can't be anywhere near these people. I can't be in this environment. I got to get far away. I didn't want to go back to Florida. It was too hot, too humid. I was like, I can't do that. So I went to Michigan. I called a number I found on Google. It took me like a day of researching different things. And then I went to this place in the middle of nowhere in Michigan. I stayed there for about 7 days. They were graduating me from detox to residential. And here I am, fighting it, right? Because the meds kicked out. You know, the meds aren't effective anymore. I'm starting to come back to reality. I had again, here I have to face my problems, right? I have to work on myself. So I'm being resistant. So after detox, I was like, I can't do this. I'm going to leave. So they dropped me off at the train station. I get a hotel room. I get high. And then the next day I flew out to California. In California, a lot of the same shit, right? So in and out, in and out, in and out. I think I went to like 6, 7 rehabs in California. I did detox, got better, right? Temporarily. And then it comes time to work on myself and I'm running. So I was homeless on the streets of California, didn't know anybody, nobody. I was living on church steps, getting chased off in the mornings, hanging outside of freaking fast food restaurants, gas stations, whatever. Barely getting by, right? I'm like going crazy at this point. I tried meth for the first time in California. That made everything worse, right? I was living on the streets for about 2 weeks. I was ignoring my family's calls because I knew what they were going to tell me. I didn't want to hear it. I remember one time while I was homeless, my mom called one of my friends from back home, and she's like, "Have you heard from him? I'm worried." And he's blowing my phone up. She's blowing my phone up. And I'm just like, no, I'm not. Like, I'm not dealing with it. Like, I always wanted to run. Always been a runner. Run from my problems. They'll disappear if I ignore them, right? But unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. So I'd say,
what happened? What was the very bottom like for you?
The very bottom was probably, and it was probably a mixture of back in Philly, right? When I'm chasing that adrenaline rush of, I got to hustle this, I got to sell this, I got to get this, I got to go get high. It was like a process, right? Here's A, B, C. These are steps I need to take to go get high. And I loved all of it, right? I loved from the start to the finish. I loved it all. The whole experience, the whole rush, like walking through the streets to go cop. I loved it all. But what it was is when I came home and I realized, like, oh shit, like I was just abandoned because of this, because of like this stuff right here. She left. Like she ditched me. This was the person I cared about. I was with her for like 1.5 years, 2 years. And I think that was like a wake up call, right? And that was like one of those little seeds. And then when the wake up call really hit was when I was homeless in California. So I'm thousands of miles away from anybody that cares about me. I'm thousands of miles away from anybody that loves me. And I'm sitting with a duffel bag, 3 outfits, living on the streets. And I'm like, what is my life? I'm still, here I am still chasing that rush, right? Still like, oh, I got to shoplift. I got to do that. I got to do this to go get high. Mm-hmm. I gotta manipulate this person. I gotta manipulate that person. I gotta, steal this, steal that, get money this way. So I wasn't, and then what it was too, it was a combination of things, right? So I remembered what that guy told me. He's like, when are you just going to be tired of it and do something about it? And that kept like playing back in my head. And I'm like, yo, there's something to this, isn't there? Like there's more to this than I want to deal with. So
somebody planted that seed and it finally.
Those seeds, man, I'm telling you, and that actually, that plays a big part in my page. Right. So my hope is that somebody sees something, right? They see something, they hear something, they can relate. It resonates with them and they remember it later. If not now, maybe later, but that they remember it, that it sticks with them, that it gives them hope, inspiration. That's my thing, right? I wanted to give it to everybody, right? And what better way than social media, right? Because everybody's on social media at some point or another during the day. So I was like, how can I reach the most people? And that was my idea behind that. Anyway, so that was my bottom. I'd say like my bottom, like you think you hit your bottom and then you go even further down and you're like, yo, like I think this is it right here. Right. So yeah, being homeless was an experience I would never want to go back to be honest. I would never, ever want to go. I wouldn't wish that on anybody either. It was terrible. My dignity was like non-existent. My self-respect was non-existent. So not only did I have these issues that I was running from, but then I made it worse by adding more to it, right? Because like you're living off of the streets, you kind of beat yourself up, right? You kind of have regret. You kind of have like,
and we keep compounding our problems,
right? Adding on to them, compounding them, right? So I'd say that was my bottom, right? And then I finally took things serious. I made a decision. Hold on one second. Let me turn the light on real quick. 1 second. I'm sorry.
appreciate everybody being here, everybody sharing this out, and all the engagement in the comments. It's a beautiful thing watching you guys love. If you're struggling, please reach out in the comments. We'll get with you. So there's a lot of people that give a lot of support in the comments. There you go.
So I kind of back to the contrary action, right? The last thing I wanted to do was be in a facility for 30, 90 days with no females, right? Because it's a distraction. So what I do, I signed myself up for all male program. I was like, you know what? This is what I love and want. So I'm going to do the opposite. You know, maybe that'll work, right? You know, I kind of wanted that change. I kind of was tired of being in that situation, being in that mindset. I was tired. I was over it. So I did something opposite of what I normally do. So that's what I did. I stayed for about 90 days, finished the program, graduated, all levels of care. I got a job working at a what do you call it? Not a retirement home, but like a home health aide, right? I got home health aide certified. I started doing that in California. I did it for about 3 months, and then I kind of slipped up. I got that hustler mentality back in. You know, I'm cured, right? I'm cured. So I went and seen the doctor to start selling Suboxone. Yeah, I could never escape that, right? That mindset was always back there, always like trying to get to me. I gave in.
The lure of easy money.
Right. Exactly. Plus, you know, it's the whole like, oh, you know, the adrenaline rush. I was always addicted to that. That was a big thing for me, like the rush, right? So I did that, and what's that?
The temptation of doing something wrong and getting away with it.
Right. Exactly. So I did that, and it didn't last long, like because I already had you know, AA drilled in my head. I already had started the steps, and it was too fresh for me to just throw it away and not take it serious, right? So I knew I fucked up. So I went and I got off the Suboxone. And actually, when I got off the Suboxone, I told them, I was like, look, I don't want any Suboxone to come off of the Suboxone. I'll do a cold turkey. Like, don't give me no meds, please. You know, because it's not dangerous. So I was like, look, just, you know, I'll do the vitals. I'll do like the vitamins or, you know, whatever, the blood pressure medicine, but don't give me any narcotics. Like, I kind of want to just be done with it. So I did that. Again, went to sober living halfway afterwards, stayed. And so at this point, I'd been in California for about a year. I'd say about a year and a half. And I haven't gone back to Philly. I got divorced finally. You know, luckily that wasn't too bad going through. That was easy. You know, it was just a thing. But I haven't been back home, right, at this point. So here I am sober again. I had like 60, 90 days. And I was like, I think I need to go home, right? I need to go visit. I need to go make amends. I had all these to-dos, right? So I scheduled like a week trip. I went home. I didn't get high. I was happy about that. Stayed strong through that. And it was kind of an eye opener, right? Like a wake up call. Like, you know, I went back home, and where I'm from in Philadelphia, it's like 10 minutes off the bridge, like I guess East Philly, but it's pretty bad with drugs. Like it's riddled, it's swamped, right? And when I was there getting high, it was, you know, bad, but like, you know, you could still walk around. When I went home to visit, I saw how much worse it got, and I was like, yo, like this is crazy. Like and at that point, more of the fentanyl was coming out. So, you know, things just escalated like quick with that. I think since I got sober, and now it's been a couple of years since then, but I lost probably more friends than I can count, you know, definitely over 10.
Me too.
But it's sad, man. It's so sad because like, I feel bad, right? And I always ask myself, was there more I could do? You know, these are close friends to me. You know, we don't talk as much, you know, because I'm not there anymore. But is there something I could have done, right? Like, how could I have helped that person? What could I have said to get through to them? And, you know, this goes back to the page, right? Like, I want to put out content that is inspiring. Maybe someone will see something, right? Maybe that one thing they see will stick. Or like, for instance, I more recently started doing, you know, stories, right? Kind of like this, but just, you know, in written form and not as long.
Sure.
But like before and after photos, right? Like, some people, they share like, you know, a good amount of their story, and a lot of them are powerful. All of them are powerful stories, you know, where they've come from and where they are now. It's moving, right? And if that can reach anybody and help them, you know, that's a success in my book, right? So
It's proof positive that anyone can recover, and that
oh yeah,
it's all about being living proof.
right. You know, it was definitely a long journey. Definitely learned a lot. A lot about myself. A lot about my behaviors, my character defects. You know, even my strengths. Right. From active addiction even to now, like I loved helping people. Right. Even if it was in a small scale to a big scale, like I take pleasure in helping somebody. If I can touch somebody's life, if I can, you know, move somebody in a positive way, that makes my day. Right. So even though I'm on the phone all day and I'm getting yelled at, my fiance is on my ass. If I can help somebody in that conversation I'm having, it's all worth it. Like, all right, cool. Like, you know what? I'll deal with whatever afterwards. You know, of course the babies come first, but you know, anything short of that, like, it's all good. You know. But so okay, yeah. So I got sober. I've been home probably like 3-4 times now in the last about 3-4 years. And again, like it just gets worse and worse over there. So I met my fiance in California. I stayed there about 3 years. Um, she was working in treatment. Um, she told me she had to come back home with her daughters. You know, she was in California at that time for like a year and a half. I think her kids were with her mom. She's like, I got to go back. And I was like, no, I don't do that. You know, I couldn't convince her. So I was like, I'll go with you. You know, so I up and moved from Los Angeles 2 years ago now. And I love it, man. I love it. The family life it's a blessing. It helps me. It helps me with gratitude, right? So anything that I live today, I would never have an active addiction, right? So every day I'll sit there and remind myself, you know, like the things I'm grateful for, and then I'll just go over the list and be like, yo, like I couldn't have any of this in active addiction. Like this list would be burned, you know, the first time I picked up. So again, you know, it's a blessing, man. We had these babies last July, and that's not to say, right? So I go through battles too, right? Just like anybody else. Like just because I'm sober doesn't mean you can attest for this. Your problems don't disappear. You just learn how to deal with them better, right? So I've been through a lot of trials, right, since I got sober, and you know, if I didn't work the steps and I didn't stay close with my higher power, I don't think I would be able to cope with them as well as I do. But those are like big um, variables with my sobriety. So when I'll give you one example. So when my twins were born, right? Uh, Lucian was born at noon. First off, they were born a month and a half premature. So Lucian was born at noon. So they did an emergency C-section. Lucian was born at noon, and Lucas was born 3 minutes later. Well, they were having issues getting him out. He was transverse, which means he was diagonal. He wasn't sitting straight up and down or straight left and right. He was, you know, all crazy in there. So they had trouble getting him out. And when he came out, it was silent. There was no crying. So the first baby, all this crying and noise, but Lucas, nothing. So they rushed him to the incubator. All these nurses surrounded him, and I'm over there freaking out, like, yo, like this is not real life, right? Like this can't be happening. So, you know, I'm sitting there with my fiance trying to be there for her, but in my head, my mind's going a million miles a minute. You know, there comes like those insecurities, those doubts, you know. I didn't have faith and trust like I should have, right? And I started like my mind started going crazy. And it was so real, right? Like that moment was like boom. And you know, they got his heart beating, but come to find out, he had. I'm gonna mess this up, but he had aortic valve. Anyway, the leaflets on his valve, he had too short, so he only had one leaflet instead of three or something. So his heart wasn't working. It had to work harder to pump through. So where the blood was going through his heart, it was like pinched. You know, instead of flowing through all three ventricles, was only flowing through one. So they said, look, you know, he's going to have to get a prosthetic every 7 years, probably. You know, there's going to be heart issues. He probably can't play any sports. He probably can't do anything with that exerts your blood pressure. Like, he's going to have to just take it easy. We're going to monitor his heart. He's going to see a cardiologist every 3 to 6 months. So I'm like, again, here I go freaking out. Like, oh my God, something wrong with my kid. Like, what am I going to do? It was they kept them in the NICU, being premature. They kept him in the NICU for about 40 days. So we had to live in so the hospital from where we were living at the time with her mom, the hospital was about an hour and a half. So we stayed local to the hospital, like up the street, for about a month, almost a month and a half. It was terrible experience. But, you know, I'm getting tried, right? I'm getting tested, you know, and in active addiction, I used a lot less of a reason to get high. You could have cursed me out and called me names and like flipped me off and like all this other shit, and that would be reason for me to get high. But now here I am, you know, in sobriety, and like real life shit's happening, and I'm not, right? So I'm noticing the growth, right? And it motivated me to grow more. You know, it's crazy because, like, again, when we first started talking earlier, you know, you said, would you ever imagine this? And no, the answer is no, right? Like, you could have told me that I would have had issues in life and I stayed sober and didn't use and didn't escape, and I would have said you're crazy. Like, no, you're nuts. You know, you got to escape that, right? You can't face that. You know, you got to avoid it, right? But here I am. So, you know, anything's possible. Anybody can recover, right? Anybody.
So,
and, you know, you just got to,
what has the solution been for you?
The steps. Really, really big part of my recovery. The steps laid a foundation that, you know, is like unbreakable. It really is. If I had, you know, I was talking to a friend of mine, a close friend of mine recently, and he just got sober. He was struggling with alcohol, and I told him, I said, look, you've tried everything, right? You've tried everything you could possibly try, and none of it worked, right? Self detox, you know, just drinking occasionally. I said, none of it worked. But the one thing you've never tried is the thing that I know I can assure you will work. You know, but he's like, you know, AA this, it's a cult, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, bro, honestly, all it is you working on yourself. And that's where it starts, and it doesn't stop. It never stops. You're gonna work on yourself, you know, until the day you die. There's always growth to have, right?
Isn't it funny? People that have never worked the steps have formed an opinion on the fellowship being a cult. You know, that
it's funny because that was me, bro. That was me. That was me.
We got brainwashed, right? You know, they're brainwashing people over there. It's a cult.
Stop drinking the coffee.
You're drinking the Kool-Aid. I'm so glad I drank the Kool-Aid.
Right. So, yeah, man, I think that's the biggest part of my recovery. Working on myself, accountability, you know, my higher power definitely plays a huge role as well, though. I can't just give all credit to AA. For me personally now, this is like my higher power. It helps a lot, right? Get through struggles and pain in life. Prayer has been a big part of my life. Like I said to you earlier, especially more so now, right?
It's going to the steps and the process, the amount of the work we do on our internal condition, you know, our character defects, you know, making the amends, you know, clearing the wreckage of our past and getting connected to God, you know, and when we're connected to God, we're connected to everybody else. And, you know, that takes us out of that isolation, which is so deadly for everybody.
So I think with the steps, the hardest part for me, you know, just my nature, right? I don't want to admit, you know, that I was the problem, right? I didn't want to admit I was the problem. And not only that, the forgiving myself, right? So a little bit about my story I didn't mention. So my youngest sister, she was born with Down syndrome, and she when she was 12, she got leukemia, and I was in active addiction this time in my life. I donated my bone marrow, and the bone marrow was still in like they were still like testing that method, right? Bone marrow transplant. It was still new. So I donated my bone marrow. I was a match, and it didn't work like I thought it should have worked, right? So instead of her body receiving it, her body rejected it. Her body fought it off. Like this is foreign. Get it out. So I donated my bone marrow in March, April. They said, look, she got like 2 more months. Her body's rejecting it. It's not going to work. She was with us almost another year, about 10 months. And
So sorry.
yeah, it was rough. That was probably a big part. That was in between me going from pills to heroin. It was more reason for me to escape, right? Because I felt guilt. I was like, yo, like, why did my bone marrow not have to work? What did I do wrong? Like, I'm trying to find the fault in me. Even though that it was out of that scope completely, right? It had nothing to do with, my bone marrow. It was more so like the cancer and the stage it was at and her body fighting it off. So I had a hard time when I was working the steps forgiving myself. And when my last time getting sober, I addressed that. And the therapist there, she's like, look, I don't know if this will help you, but you should write a letter to her, right? Ask for forgiveness and then write a letter to yourself. And same thing, right? And that opened my eyes pretty big, right? And then that's when I realized, I was like, you know what? I have to work through this stuff. Like, this stuff isn't going nowhere. It's just staying there. It keeps coming back up. Like, I need to get to the root of the issue and deal with it, right? So the steps helped a lot with that. But for me, I didn't want to look at me, right? I wanted to look at everyone around me, like, oh, it was that, it was this, it was this. I didn't want to accept that I was the issue for a lot of this. I was the blame for a lot of my issue, a lot of the things going on in my life.
Yeah. Right.
So that was hard for me when I was working the steps. My fourth step was hard.
How did you move through your forgiving yourself? What was that process like for you? Just for anyone out there that may be struggling with that, forgiving themselves.
How do I word this? Forgiving myself, the way I got through it was, look, I'm trying to find the words to describe it. It was more so, accepting the things I couldn't change and changing the things I could, right? The serenity prayer, right? But it was in that context, because a lot of things were out of my control. For instance, the bone marrow. I was beating myself up for quite a while about it, right? In active addiction. And I had to, let go of, this was out of my control and I couldn't change it. It was God's plan, so to speak, right? Maybe if this didn't happen, I wouldn't have got sober. And I miss my sister dearly every day, right? And I kind of like got sober for her, and not only for her, but like that was a big part of it. I used it as motivation. Like, hey, she wouldn't want me destroying my life. She wouldn't want me, hurting everybody around me. So I kind of used it like that. But I forgave myself, because without me forgiving myself, I wouldn't have been able to get this far, right? I was using that as it was a blockage in my way. It was a barricade, How I got past it, I guess. I mean, I dove into the big book, right? And then I was reading it a lot. I was talking with my sponsor every day, probably more than I should have. Like, I was probably annoying him, right? A million questions, but how do you do this? And one thing with me, I've always been this way, is I'll challenge everything, right? If it doesn't sound like something that I can accept, I'm going to challenge it. I'm going to challenge everything and anything. I'm going to question it. I always been that type where I ask like a million questions, especially if I didn't understand it, right? So, I acted like I knew everything, but I also, challenged it with questions to gain more info on it. So I guess like forgiving myself kind of worked that way, where I didn't know how to do it myself, but with guidance from my sponsor and, and people in the fellowship, it kind of made it a little bit easier. And then talking to other people and then their stories and where I could relate with it and the forgiveness and therapy. In the beginning, I'd say my first almost year clean, I was in therapy, just working through different problems that I couldn't accept, anxiety, just you know,
Therapy is a valuable added tool to anybody's recovery.
100%, 100%. That was another thing I recommended to my friend, you know, struggling with alcoholism. I was like, look, you know, I know you're, you know, because he's like a know-it-all too, right? You know, he's smart, college, knows it all. You ain't gonna tell him nothing. I'm like, dude, like, I know you could probably teach the therapist. I get that, but like even therapists see therapists. So like you know it all, but you can still see a therapist. Like obviously there's some issues you need to work through, or you wouldn't be sitting here having this conversation about not being able to put down the bottle. Like there's something there you're not addressing. Whatever the case may be, you know, just work through it, right? You know, if you can't find the answer in the book, then maybe dig deep for the answer, and maybe you'll find it. You know.
Talk to other people that have been down the same path.
Yeah, and that's why I love meetings, right, and fellowship, because I haven't been through it all, and so many people have been through so much more, you know. And I'm not trying to compare stories, but I can definitely learn from theirs, right? So their experience I can learn from. So these days I don't really challenge their experience or challenge what they say, like going down this road. I learned from it, right? When I was a kid, you told me not to do something, like, oh, don't do that, I've done it. I'm like, you know, F you, I'm going to go do it. You know, it'll turn out different for me. I don't do that anymore, right? Now I just learn. I take advice. I take suggestions.
You know how when you're out there honing your skills as a thief, right? Shoplifting and stuff. You're out there. You're learning new techniques. You're working with people that are better at thieving than you are. It's the same for recovery. You get in there. You start learning from people and adding tools to your recovery toolbox that you may need at some point down the road. And if you don't need them in your life, you can share them with somebody else that can. That's the beauty of all of this.
And that's why I like the page, right? So I'm going to go back to that. Like, if I didn't experience it and it's not in my story, then maybe it's in someone else's that you can learn from or someone else can see and like relate. Because again, we all have different journeys, right? We all have different paths. We all have different stories.
Absolutely.
You can find something to relate with in there, right? Even if it's just a word, even if it's just a sentence, 3 words, you know, you can find something. And it's just a matter of like being open-minded, right? Being open-minded, being receiving of these things. Because for a long time, I was that stubborn, you know, that stubborn idiot. Right? I know it all. You can't tell me shit, right? I didn't want to hear it, or, you know, I'm listening, but I just didn't want to hear it, right? So for people that are recovering, you know, it's real important to, you know, it's real important to fellowship, you know, and trying to don't look for the differences, look for the relativeness, right? You know, look for the same thing, not the differences. How you're different from this person, you're different from that person. Guess what? We're all addicts, you know. We're all in recovery. That's something that you can, you know, that can resonate with you. So,
we all have different types of addiction. We're addicted to different things, where we have different consequences, but the way our addiction made us feel about ourselves is all the same.
Right. Yeah, man, it was definitely a rough journey. I think if it wasn't for my stubbornness and my sense that I knew it all, it probably would have been a lot easier. But I took the rougher route. You know, I had to learn the hard way in a lot of different ways. And, you know, people don't have to go through that. You know, yeah, exactly. You know what I'm saying. You know what I'm saying. Hard headed. You know, it ain't no getting through to us. We can tell you, you can't tell us. But yeah, man, it's some people don't have to go through certain things. You know, they can talk to people. They can, you know, observe. They can see it without, you know, living it.
Not everyone has to go to the same bottoms we went.
Not at all. I don't recommend that anybody waits till they're homeless to get sober. I do not recommend that at all. You know, it took a while for my body to heal from that. Even like I didn't take care of myself, right? And I'm shooting up anything I can find in my veins, right? That's not healthy in any way, shape, or form. So, you know, I'm not eating. You know, I'm not drinking. Not hydrating. You know, just the basic things that you. Somebody told me once, right? You know. I always used to say, like, you know, the heroin took this from me, right? My addiction took this from me. But he said something. He's like, look, no, it didn't take anything from you. You gave it away for the heroin, right? You voluntarily gave up all of these things, relationship, family, home. You gave it away. You chose that, you know, that. And I'm like, you know, that's true. Because I would have traded my fucking, you know, my own blood for that next high, you know, and it didn't take it. I voluntarily gave it, you know, but you know, I was in a very sick state of mind, and I think, yeah, again, I think, like you said, everybody doesn't have to reach that bottom to recover. Not at all.
Let your bottom be where you stop digging.
Right, right, exactly. You can dig, you can dig very little, and not have to go down that road for sure.
You know, I want to thank you for being here. We're over an hour. Is there anything you would like to say in closing? I'd like to invite everyone to jump over to the Sober Guru and check it out, and give him a follow, a like and a follow. He's got a lot of amazing content. Tim, you want to?
If I had to say anything, man, just anybody out there, just don't give up hope. You know, you're not alone in this. You know, we're in this together. Just like me and Higgy here, we're talking, right? We're in this together, right? And that goes for anybody in recovery. It's a big network. You don't have to do this alone. You know, we do recover. It's cliche, but it's so true. So true. That's all, man. Thank you for having me here. I really appreciate it.
You know, for your very first live, you did phenomenal.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thanks, everybody.
Maybe I'll get more comfortable with it, you know.
Yeah, we'll do this next time, okay?
Thank you, man. Appreciate it.
If you ever want to do a live on your page, just let me know.
For sure. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Okay, good night, everybody. Please tune in on Thursday. Denny Wilson's going to be celebrating 25 years in recovery, and he has some very impressive announcements to make about the future of Elder Denny Wilson. Thanks, guys, for tuning in. I'm a Higgy. I'm out. Sober Guru.
Man.
Love you, dog.
Everybody be safe.
Booyah.